Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is...
Ken Watanabe.
And Bill D'Angelo, also from the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. So the topic today is Aikido meditation, or is Aikido a form of meditation? It's a big one.
Not a bit big. It's just like, is Aikido a form of meditation? Yes and no. I know people hate it when I say yes and no, but yes and no. You know, in the beginning, no. But farther along, it can be.
What's meditation?
Meditation is the stillness of the practice of stillness of mind. So you sit there, and anything. You could be sitting, you could be walking, you could be driving, could be meditative, but you're just not holding on to thought.
So you still have thoughts sometimes, but you don't.
No, you have the thoughts the whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah, you don't meditate.
I have. In fact, I have a very specific meditation memory of, I believe it was Jake, who's a member of the dojo, but I guess moved away. And he used to do a meditation class on Saturdays. And I think it went like 90 minutes, and he'd break it up. But even then, what I noticed for myself was the difficulty, because I didn't practice enough, the difficulty of the physical aspect of concentrated meditation.
Well, I mean, you just weren't sitting in a seat that was comfortable, right? But yes, you are right. There is the physical aspect you fight with at first when you're meditating. But more to the question about, is Aikido meditation?
Or you sometimes hear people in the internet sphere saying that Aikido is a form of moving meditation as opposed to just. That's what when I look at it, when I read about it, that's what I see. People saying Aikido is moving meditation.
It can be a form of moving meditation, but not in the beginning.
Yeah.
It takes a long time for you to learn to relax in Aikido. It takes
years.
I don't know, up to Nikyu, somewhere between second Kyu and second Dan, you learn how to relax. And then from there, you learn the techniques, and then you learn how to breathe appropriately. Because most times you're holding your breath. Right. That's why people get hypoxic and they get tired in the beginning of their Aikido training.
Is there, I don't know how to phrase this question. Do you have any techniques as an instructor that helps people move from the physical aspect of it to the mental aspect?
No. You have to put your time in on the mat, because first you have to master the techniques. And then from mastering the techniques, you have to learn how to breathe, and then you got to learn how to master your mind. And then every person's mind is different, just like every person's body is different.
So it's a process. It's a time-based process, probably different for different people. But when someone asks us a question, is Aikido meditation or is it moving meditation? What are the benefits of meditation? Like, why is it even important whether or not Aikido is a form of meditation?
Well, because in your mind, without knowing it, your mind is telling you a story, which may or may not be true. And then the whole time you're like, yeah, So it's saying, and then some of it's not even conscious thought, because it's so ingrained inside of you that your brain just goes, you're no good. You're not going to make it. You should just quit. Isn't this too hard for you? Come on. You know what? Let's go get beers. The Raider game is on.
Ken, do you meditate?
No, I do not meditate at all.
Never before.
Well, they say Iaido is moving meditation, and it took me a long time to understand the connection between the mental aspect of Iaido and the physical aspect of Iaido.
But that's still not meditation.
It's still not meditation. But my understanding is meditation involves focus. You're focusing on one thing at a particular time, then the next thing comes, then you don't hold on to that thought you had before, but you instantly change over to the present thought. So whatever you're doing right now is what you concentrate on 100%. Like in Zazen, you're supposed to let thoughts come in and leave. You're not supposed to hold on to them. If that's true, that's my intellectual understanding of what Zazen is.
But what you're describing in Iaido is the external application of meditation in Iaido, but that you don't focus on any one thing, right? So in your mind, you cannot focus on any one thing.
In my mind, I'm focusing on the particular thing I'm doing at the particular moment in the technique 100% as best as I can, and not think about anything else.
Well, that's what they call being in the zone, from the sports aspect of it. But that's not meditative. Meditative, if it's going to be a meditation, some people do guided, some people don't do guided. But the idea is that you want to separate your thoughts from your feelings. So you want to separate your mind from your body on a certain level, right? So like if you can get to that place where you can move without thinking, like, you do the whole shohato without thought, but see, that shohato is too slow. But let's say you did shohato like 100 times, and throughout that whole 100 times of doing shohato, your body on the outside is moving doing shohato, but your mind on the inside is completely still. No, as I say, no abiding, no stopping on one particular thought, not even the thought of what you're doing.
So your mind is not empty, but it's completely fluid? Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's empty from jumping from lily pad to lily pad. It's like a river which flows. And then, like you say, a river is never the same in one spot ever again, right? So it just continues to flow and flow and flow.
There's an interesting historical piece I wanted to kind of put in for a second and get both of your perspectives on this. So in ancient Hindu practice and early Buddhist practice in India, the word dhyana means meditation, which later then got translated into Chinese and then Japanese into Zen. And depending on who you believe about the derivation of that word, it involves D meaning the mind and then yana meaning move. So it's like this moving mind or mind away from movement. Isn't there a pretty big history of the samurai classes at different times co-opting or adopting aspects of Zen Buddhism for its benefits in their training and combat? And how does that relate to Aikido?
A lot of that's romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 10 is for the royalty, and Zen is for the warrior, and Shin Buddhism's for the peasants, that type of thing. It's romantic to say like all samurai studied Zen. Not necessarily. Some of them were Christians.
Right.
Right. They adopted whatever. The thing about samurais, they would adopt whatever they could in that moment to make themselves better.
So it was like a mental technology.
Right.
Yeah.
They go, Christian, they would be doing that. Oh, Zen would do this thing. But I wouldn't say that every samurai was meditating.
Maybe not, but I knew that they needed techniques of how to quiet their mind for training.
I think the formalized adoption of Zen.
Oh, like they did it as they joined a congregation and,
yeah,
stuff like that. They meditated on their own part of their training, or they would quiet their mind before they trained, like how before class you're supposed to sit and quiet your mind a little bit, calm down, and then prepare yourself for training.
Well, but that's the romanticism of Bushido. Bushido, we do this, we do that, we do these things, and we clear our minds before we fight. But some of those people were just going out to fight.
That was their job.
That's their job. So it's not like a lot of them were like, I'm going to sit down and meditate. And the popularized understanding of the samurai is that they are these mindless warriors who develop these Zen techniques to kill people without thought, right? But a lot of these people were just fighters.
They were soldiers. That was their
Yeah.
job, to go out and kill the enemy.
Right.
I guess my question was, and I think some of it is what's in the popular culture of the West going to Japan to study martial arts. Like I was thinking, and I wish I'd reread it for today, but Yugen Harajel's book, Zen and the Art of Archery,
I have
which
read it several times.
everyone here has probably read it.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you talk about romanticism, is there an element of where the West is getting recontacted with Japanese culture and they overemphasize this?
Yeah, I mean, if you read Haragel's book, and it's kind of, I think it's funny, but he tries to trick the teacher and knocking the bow and shooting it, so he gets good at the physical aspect of it. But then the teacher realizes that he was just faking it and is good at faking it, and then casts him out.
Right.
Yeah, but like, who was his teacher? Kenzo something. It was Haragel's teacher.
I can see you look.
And then he created this whole movement of Budo and mindfulness, and archery as a Zen practice and all these things.
Do you think part of that too, of what Haragel was responding to was, I mean, I've never done Japanese archery, but I mean, you watch documentaries about it, and you did this discussion where the teacher's like, don't focus on necessarily hitting the target. Like if you're going to screw yourself up by focusing on the target.
Yeah, and then there's a story where he was sleeping, and he asked the teacher, "Well, shouldn't you hit the target or something like that?" And then the teacher woke him up in the middle of the night and took him outside, shot 2 arrows in the dark, turned the light on, and they're both in bullseye. But let's say that it's not true. Haragel wrote that as a way to support his assertion about this thing, and then you focus on that, and you go, oh my God, and you don't focus on what he is asserting about Zen and these things. It happens all the time.
But there is the Japanese version of Zen, and there's several. I mean, there's at least multiple ones. Our teacher was a Soto Zen priest.
Right.
I mean, it seems like to me like that the way Japanese culture is romanticized or interpreted, there's still a very large component of society in Japan that follows a Zen teaching.
I wouldn't say that. I mean,
No.
they're Shinto or they're Buddhist, and then modern people try to be all cool and be Christian. But what do they say? When you're born, you come in this world as Shinto, and then when you die, you leave this world as a Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, but I think we're kind of getting away from this idea of we're focusing too much on the religious aspect of this,
Of the question.
of your question. How do you use Aikido to relax and then make it a meditative practice? Well, first you have to get through the minutia of the physicalness of Aikido, timing, spacing, moving in, Irimi, Tenkan, Kotegaeshi, all that stuff. And then what happens is that it's, we can explain it from a scientific standpoint, is that once you no longer worry about the physical aspects of it, you can calm your nervous system down from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. And then when you get in that subconscious state, your body starts to move in incredible ways. But it moves in a way that way because it's calm. Was it Seichu no do, do no Seichu? Calmness and movement, movementness and calmness. And so the reason why I admonish you guys all about talking so much in class is that you want the student to learn how to get their mind into a subconscious state. The moment you speak, they come out of subconscious and come to conscious. They say if your tongue is moving, your mind is in a sympathetic conscious state.
Right.
And that's why when you're sitting in meditation, you're trying to relax your jaw and your tongue at the same time. So when the student learns to get themselves in that state, then they can apply that to the Aikido movement. And then from there, they can apply it to their regular life. And then the more trained they are, the faster they can get into that state. They can get into that state just when they turn their head one way, boom, they can hit themselves into a parasympathetic subconscious state. And like you said, subconscious movement is like 10 times faster than conscious movement.
Right.
But then that's the thing is that's why, like you were, a couple podcasts ago, you were talking about after class, you feel great. You feel great because for that one moment, you separated your mind and you just moved your body. You weren't worrying about, oh, got to go to the supermarket, got to go get milk, got to go do these things. Oh, my boss yelled at me. Oh, my wife's mad at me. I ran into the tree with my car. All those things melt away because, for one, someone's trying to hit you in the head, and you got to negotiate that. But in order to negotiate that well, you drop into a subconscious state, and then your mind separates, right? And then it separates all those things, and then afterwards, oh, I didn't think about it for an hour. I feel better. I feel good now.
The person who's teaching the class, they don't actually get into that state, though, because they have to remain critical and aware.
No, I would imagine you could, because the thing is that the reason why I don't want the teachers to talk as much is because I want you to learn how to watch. Mm. So you're watching the student, and then you notice, oh, everybody who makes this one mistake is doing this one thing. Oh, and then you stop and correct it, and then step back again, and then you notice, oh, they stopped making that mistake from that one correction. But if you're just going, so anyways, and you, and then you're constantly talking, telling stories, laughing, screwing around, like no one can get into that parasympathetic state. And that's why Free Sensei didn't allow talking during class. He didn't allow any distractions. Do you remember like when people would come with like purple hair or something? He'd say, next time you come, don't come with that hair or don't come back at all. Because it was a distraction. Anything which distracts you in class, Free Sensei would want to remove. Mm. Because for you to get into that state, everything has to line up. The only person who talks is the teacher. And when the teacher talks, they talk succinctly and precisely. They don't blather on, right? And then that's why you go to these dojos and they teach something different every day. The students can never get into that parasympathetic state because they're constantly thinking about, today the hand is bent. Tomorrow the hand's not bent. Today it's bent. Now it's on the, all that differences that is it only causes your mind to have to work.
So the inconsistency is a form of distraction in and of itself. Yeah.
100%. And so that's why, like here, we try to do the same things over and over and over again.
The same way.
Right. So that when the person comes to class on Monday, it's the same as they come on Wednesday, same as they come on Friday. And then that sameness enables them to get into the rhythm. Because I don't know, do you feel like you can drop yourself into a, meditative state when you train and do a Iaido? Or Aikido?
I don't think, I'm still thinking about the technique. Like, I still have Furuya Sensei's instructions in my head as I do it. I'm reminding myself how to do the technique all the time. I think I do that.
But Ken, when Furuya Sensei was alive and you took so much of his ukemi, did you find that experience had a different kind of mental aspect or meditative component?
I think it helped a lot because you have no time to think. All you have time to do is to react appropriately to whatever movement was happening. So if I had time to think, I was always too much behind, or maybe I anticipated. And either way, I messed up. I lost a connection with Sensei. And then I would put myself in a vulnerable position. I always thought, I'm going to get hit right now because I was out of position. So in a way, yes, like you can't think. You have to train your body to just move with it. Just like you were talking about, like you empty your mind. I don't think about like where my foot is supposed to be. My foot just has to be there so my body could be there. And I'm in the right position where he can throw me as hard as he wants to, but I'll still be safe. So in a way, it was almost like meditation, but it was really scary meditation,
Well, but that's the thing, is that you're trained to put your foot in the right place. You're trained to put your body in the right position,
Yeah.
right? So that you can let go of the conscious thought of, I should be right here,
Yeah.
right? And like, that's that thing, is we trying to get students into that state, because that's the most beneficial state for as a martial artist, but it's also the most beneficial state for your mental health. Because if you can meditate and not hold on to that thing that happened in the 6th grade, then that thing no longer holds any weight on you, any influence. And then you can move on in life. The other day someone came to me and was talking about microdosing, psilocybin or magic mushrooms or something like that. And the problem with doing that is, he had like these massive mental gains from it. But the problem with those gains is that they have no foundation.
What do you mean by that?
I let go of the fight that I was having with my dad, and I no longer fight with my dad because I took this drug. The thing is that all your dad has to do is say that one thing again, or you have to go home. Like we're shooting this podcast right before the holidays, right? Ram Dass says, if you think you're enlightened, go home, right? Because those people know how to push your buttons. But then because this person microdosed and just had the epiphany of letting it go, they don't have the skill to let it go. So when it re-enters the room, it'll just push your button again, because you have no foundation in which to deal with that thing. And so how that is similar to Aikido is that you've trained yourself to negotiate the strike. And then when it became subconscious, your body is moving before your mind can go, is that Shomanuchi coming?
Right.
You know,
It's like you train to move your foot in the right way, and then pretty soon your foot just moves correctly, and you don't have to think about it. That kind of thing. So you spend your whole time, maybe the first 5-6 years, wondering, is my foot right? Is my posture right? Is my hand right? Is my timing right? Is everything right? Then once you get rid of the physical part, then your mind doesn't have, it's a burden off your mind, correct?
right. And then you try to learn to calm down.
And that's the ultimate teaching, is calming down, because your brain trusts your body to do the right thing at the right time. So you don't have to worry about, like doing Tenkan correctly or eating me correctly. You can worry about other more pressing matters.
Because each situation is unique.
Mm-hmm.
Sensei, does meditating outside Aikido practice help you get into the meditative state in Aikido?
I don't know, because I could get in the state without meditation practice, but I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem of you can't get into that meditative state and it messes up your Aikido. I have the problem, which is different, which is how do you not get mad, right? So I meditate outside of the dojo to try to create the separation in my mind so that my mind can calm down. So here's an interesting idea. From a neuroplasticity standpoint, your brain creates the same neurotransmitter receptors as the day before. So if you have 100 anger receptors, 100 angry events, it will create 100 angry receptors for the next day.
Out of memory?
Out of neuroplasticity and speed. So let's say tomorrow, I've been meditating, and so tomorrow I only have 90 episodes. It'll only make 90 receptors, and then so on and so forth. So it gets to a place where it doesn't create neurotransmitters for anger because you stopped becoming angry. So by doing Aikido, and you learn to be in a meditative state, and then when a person attacks you, you learn not to freeze up and get scared, angry, or whatever it is. Your brain stops creating those neurotransmitters, those receptors for those neurotransmitters. And then that's where you learn, your body starts to calm down and your mind starts to calm down. That is the, how antidepressants work. They just constantly cut down neurotransmitters so that you have 100 depressive episodes. You take the antidepressant, and then tomorrow you have 90, 80, 70, boom, and then now you're out, and then your mind doesn't create those neurotransmitters, so it's less likely to fall into depression.
So you're changing your mind.
So what you're saying is taking antidepressants or microdosing, it's like not putting in the actual work. You're going to ease your way out, so you actually do not learn how to manage your ego or mindset. You're just taking this thing and boom, it's like, oh, easy. It's like getting like winning the lottery almost. You don't work for the money.
And what happens to most of those 70% of those people?
Yeah, they just lives ruined. They don't know how to manage. They don't know how to manage that money,
and they go bankrupt.
Yeah. So meditation is like you're working, you're toiling away to create the same state you would if you were taking microdosing or
not holding on to
past stuff.
The guy who cut you off 3 miles ago. I should slow down and get him. And what kind of car was you start chasing some other person, and it wasn't even that person.
Yeah. So, in other words, meditation is a way to get rid of, how they say, like chop your head off, put it by the door, get rid of your ego. Ego and meditation are two different sides of the same coin.
Kind of. It's, there's all these different words, which I don't really know.
Yeah.
Smaller self, larger self, higher self, where you get angry because people don't wash their uniforms. Yeah. And so you just, the whole time, it's just grinding on you. And then you get that person who doesn't wash their uniform, and then you smash them. And that person's like, Bill, what are you doing? And then you're like, nothing, because you don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But a normal person who's healthy and well-adjusted says, hey, Bill, you should start washing your uniform. It's starting to smell a little bit. And then Bill goes, oh, sorry, I will. But you inside go, he's going to say no. He's going to smart off. And then you start, see, like the story that you start telling yourself in your mind starts to mess you up.
And that's the story that you hold on to in your head. You cannot get rid of that narrative. And meditation is how to get rid of that false narrative, or that story that you tell yourself.
Yeah. Did you see people are watching me? No one's watching you. Did you see that thing? Everybody thinks I'm stupid. No one likes my jacket. Not one person said I like your jacket. So you have to somehow stop your brain from overthinking. And then that's the auspices of the sympathetic nervous state. Right? So then you try to get into a parasympathetic nervous state. Like one thing you can try is 852 hertz. 852 hertz. When you listen to it in your earbuds, it's supposed to be calming. But when you first listen to it, it's like psss in your ear, and you're like, but the thing is, it's supposedly when you're listening to it, your mind can't talk to itself. You can't go, yeah, so anyways, as those guys are saying, they're all looking at you. That guy thinks your new shoes suck. You put 852 on, the buzz, the beep from it, you cannot think, you cannot dialogue with yourself. But people put 852 on to calm their minds down, because after that, your mind starts to calm down, and then it's just a tone. But at first, your mind's like, I can't hear you. What did you say? I don't know what I'm saying. It's trying to talk to itself, and it can't. It's really, really interesting. And then they have the one I use is 852, and it goes left ear, right ear, left ear, right ear. I can feel my eyes going whoosh, 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 back and forth while I'm listening to it. It's like a little more than 2 minutes. And then it is super true that you can't talk to yourself in your mind while 852 hertz is on. And that's the same thing with Aikido.
That's the goal as you're moving. But when you're doing a technique, that's your own training that creates that 852 hertz in your head.
Well, no, it turns off the talk.
Yeah, like the correct mindset is you turn off that self-talk.
Yeah, we call that no mind.
No mind. Yeah.
Yeah. What's no mind in Japanese?
Mushin.
Mushin.
Mushin. It's just not like the absence of mind, but it's the mind that doesn't hold on to things.
Right. It's just surfing the wave.
It just sees things as they are without any value
Judgment.
or ego, judgment, anger, sadness attached to it.
Yeah. And so in Aikido, the moment you stop to think, your body stops and then you get hit in the head. So that's why it's really, really important to get the technical movement down pat so that you can get to no mind as fast as possible. But that's why, like in class, I'm like, don't talk, let them do it. Because the more they do it, they start to get into that rhythm. And then they're doing it. And even if they're, fifth cue, if they can let go of thinking about how the technique should be and just move their body, they'll feel better after class.
I have a question. So I see this sometimes in class, even myself doing it, that let's say you're doing Ikkyo from Shomanuchi and someone changes the attack by accident, or the person doing the technique messes up in their mind, they mess up halfway and they want to restart. Is that sort of self-analysis can get in the way of getting to what you're talking about, right? And if you're constantly saying, oops, I got to stop and redo it, you can't get into that flow state.
Yeah, you can't flow, right? You can't flow because you're always trying to get to perfect. And then Aikido's super spontaneous. It's super spontaneous because you never let them see you sweat. And so, like there's a famous story about like tea ceremony where the person knocks over the tea whisk and then just keeps going. And then when there's a moment, they just lift it up and put it back.
Right.
Because you never demonstrate that it got to you, because the attacker will always be spontaneous. They don't like in Aikido. You put up your hand, and you go, I'm gonna strike you with this hand. No, the person doesn't do that. They come up and hey, do you have the? And they punch you in the face. Right. There's no. They're not going to telegraph it.
Right. No negotiation.
So you have to be super spontaneous, and then you thought it was going to be a punch when it was a kick, and then you got knocked out. That's because your mind was not in a parasympathetic state. When it's in a parasympathetic state, it moves. I want to say conscious movement is 0.12 seconds, and subconscious movement can be down to like 0.06 seconds, 0.08 seconds. So it's much faster. That's why when you're watching football, the guy is running down the field, and the defender is coming right at him, and he just jukes him, and then the guy falls down, and then everyone goes, "Oh my God, you're so lame." No, it's because you're looking at it from a conscious standpoint. It's going to be, 50% slower.
Right. The juke example is a very famous example of that, because the body, as you say, is responding, and it can't respond as fast as a person initiating,
unless you're in a subconscious state. Because if it's in a subconscious state, your body doesn't have, it calculates much faster. Conscious state, supposedly, like you can only take in 1,000 bits, and then a subconscious state you can take in 100 million bits, right? So like you're going, he's gonna go to the left. Oh, he went right, and then you fell down in front of a stadium full of people on national TV, and you kind of go, sorry, everybody. They scored the touchdown and we lost the game. Right?
Can you train that?
Yeah. That's what we were talking about in the beginning of the Yado, that you can get your mind into a subconscious state, and then you can get into the zone. And then you're in the zone all the time. But that's not meditation. That's mindful movement. So like meditation versus mindful movement, they're similar but different. Meditation is the act of practicing to calm your mind and relax and all these things. Meditative movement, or being in the zone, is that your body is in such a heightened subconscious state that when the ball is shot at you, it's moving at 100 miles an hour. You just reach your hand and you catch it. Have you ever seen the video of Eva Longoria?
Yes, the baseball player.
Yeah, and he's being interviewed on television. He's talking, and then someone hits a ball. He goes, boom, and he catches it, and then he just goes, hey, you guys, we're doing a interview.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing.
I mean, you go, that's got to be fake. He caught it with his bare hand like that. He's talking. So anyways, and he goes, they crack, the ball gets hit. He's like talking, and he just, boom, and he just catches it like that. Like, no hesitation.
You should show that video. It's an incredible
I'll
video.
put that on there.
Yeah.
But the thing about this, who did you say? Eva Longoria?
Yeah, it's
Ava.
almost like the actress's name.
Okay.
Eva Longoria. But yeah,
But physically, he's been trained at a high level
yeah, he's a professional baseball player.
to do these actions. So he hears a crack. He just has to turn and put his hand up.
Well, one thing that
Just
hit
catch
me about
the
it, Ken, and I
ball.
mean, I've seen it a couple times, is that he isn't rushing when he does it.
No, he's talking.
He's talking, and the hand, I mean, it doesn't go, it moves fast, but it doesn't move like he's rushing. And his mental state doesn't change. Like you said, like when he catches the ball,
Barehanded.
doesn't have a physical reaction to that, and the speed at which he moves is obviously fast but not rushed.
Right. And then the ball was moving at a high rate because once he catches the ball, he shakes it out. He's like, guys, interview.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like he caught it and was like, no problem. And then, so if he caught it barehanded, the accuracy of catching it barehanded is much greater than catching it with a glove.
Yeah. It's an incredible video. It really is.
But that's his ability to drop into a subconscious state that quickly.
So I have a training question. If trying to get to that mental state is like one of the goals, what is the teaching benefit of training the mind through, let's say, regular kata practice versus a jiwaza practice?
Well, they call that, like, what do they call it in fitness? Confusion, motor confusion, right? So jiwaza is like that motor confusion. What happens next creates that spontaneity, but it's not supposed to be like that. It's a demonstration of your level of flow, right? It's not the practice we practice so we can get into the flow. No, the jiwaza is a demonstration of what you can do, right? But people think, oh no, we train something different to create confusion so the mind doesn't get set in what. No, man, you why do you think you learn how to write the same way and to learn how to write? They don't bring in different goth script and you got to do a different one every time you're trying to learn it. No, like you learn one thing well and then you start to vary it.
So people are kind of putting one in front of the other improperly.
Well, jiwaza is fun. It's exciting. Kata movement, doing tenkan for an hour.
Yeah, it's boring. Nobody wants to do that. But that's the only way, like you said, to get to that state of no mind, because you don't have to think about doing tenkan. You did it like 10,000 times. When a person comes to grab you or kick you, you just do it. And you're in the right position, hopefully.
What's the difference between moving meditation or the meditative mind versus phoning it in and being lazy?
I mean, phoning it in is just, you're just there. If you're there, you might as well be productive. Like there's a story that someone told me just the other day about Yamada Sensei in the south of France. So they're doing Aikido outside and Yamada Sensei's teaching and they start with tenkan and then they're just doing tenkan after tenkan. And I think they said 47 minutes of tenkan. And then they look over and Yamada Sensei's like talking to some French girl over the fence. But the thing is that the people who got no benefit out of that were the people that just, when's he going to move on and do something fun? And this is horrible. This is terrible. No, he gave you 47 minutes to work on that one technique. And then while that was happening, okay, I'm going to work on the penetration. Okay, I'm going to work on the turn. Okay, now I'm going to work on... But instead, the whole time you're going, what is this? Come on. Oh my God, Yamada says, hey, turn around. Look at the clock. Girl, go. See, like you're having this fight with yourself when you should just be like, oh, it's Shogunai. Better work on this tenkan. The universe gave you the opportunity to work on your tenkan. So being lazy and phoning it in, You drove all the way here, got on the mat to phone it in, to be lazy. I mean, you can, but it's just, what a waste. Like,
Should have just stayed home, right?
you got more benefit out of it. Ichigo Ichie. You got this one opportunity to train that you may get in a car accident on the way home, right? And then you're going to be like, I phoned it in the class I was just at, and now I'm dead. Like, what a waste. Like, life gives you lemons, squeeze every drop out of it. Instead of, oh, lemons.
I have a quick comment about Aikido as meditation. Usually meditation you do on your own. But Aikido, you always need the partner to create the technique. So you would say both uke and nage have to experience this. What was that that term you used? The no mind.
Yeah.
So both have to ideally be in this state. Although if one is already in this state, they can help the other person achieve this same state. I mean, is that true?
If you've ever read Tea Life, Tea Mind, and he talks about the 5 concepts of tea, waka, sei, jaku, and all that stuff, that tranquility, the last component of tea, that we can be in this tranquil state in the company of others is the paradox, is the paraphrase. Mm-hmm. That yes, you can be in this no mind, parasympathetic, calm state while someone is attacking you. That's the paradox.
Yeah. Despite the fact
that someone is telling you that you're ugly, or haranguing you at Christmas dinner because you didn't go to law school. No, like that's the level.
That sounds like the highest level anybody could be. Like, just be tranquil while someone's like getting on your case about not being a certain thing. Of course, like if you're in that state, you're already a very accomplished person.
But that's the reason why you are studying Aikido, not karate. That you understand that every person is suffering, and that this person who attacks you isn't necessarily attacking you, although they are attacking you. They're really venting. There's no one who's in a good place, calm and feeling good, screams obscenities and bigotry out the window on the freeway.
Yeah.
Right? No one attacks someone in the bar because they're in a good place. Right? And so you understand, as a, more evolved person, you look at that person who is attacking you and think, in the Buddhist universal truth is that everybody suffers.
So you do not meet their anger with your own anger. You
right.
meet their anger in a way that's appropriate to neutralize their attack and hopefully not hurt them and protect yourself.
Exactly. And then we can only give that requires precision, and we can only give that precision when we are in a calm state where we have training, right? You try to be all calm and relaxed, and then it doesn't work, and you just start gouging out their eyes. No, you're in a calm place. You're relaxed. You can give compassion and empathy. When you're not in a calm place and you're not relaxed, you can't give compassion and empathy.
So, Sensei, if you're the teacher in class and you tell the person to relax, how does that work? Does that really help people get into the flow? Probably not, right?
That's probably more my own inconsistency as a teacher, is to tell people, relax, just relax, when I really probably should tell them to calm down, to be less stiff. Their shoulder, you always say, when your shoulders sit, the movement has entered your body.
Yes. That's
that inability to relax.
I mean, from my own training, I think the thing that you said earlier, maybe halfway through the podcast, was one good way of measuring this physiologically is your breathing, which is a big element of different types of meditation. But You're saying like, if your breath is not relaxed and even and continuous, then you're going to run out of energy.
Oh, see, like there's an interesting story. Here's an interesting concept. So, the former Aikido teacher, he told them, "Oh, you have to do this techniques in one breath." So people go, "Okay," and then they're just like holding their breath.
Right.
But that's not the point. That's not what he's talking about. The in breath and the out breath are supposed to be timed with your movement, and then when you can breathe in the movement, you can create more power. But so when this person said you have to be able to complete the movement in one breath, you're trying to hold it for 62 seconds or 41 seconds.
Right.
But that's not exactly what you're trying to do. So when you practice, box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, or any type of breathing things, you learn how to breathe from your diaphragm and not from your chest. And then when you hold your breath, we hold our breath from our chests.
Right.
So a stress response is that we hold our breath from our chest, our shoulders start to rise to gain more volume. And that's where I keep telling people, you got to relax. Which I probably should say is just breathe. So that's probably not. But the whole point is that once you practice breathing and you learn to breathe from your center, your hara, then when you can make the movement in ideally a single breath, but it's not a breath that you're holding, so to speak.
Isn't there also an element of the timing of the inhale and the exhale that you can capture the opponent's motion, or you draw it in or you draw it out?
Well, you can capture their motion, and then they become more vulnerable from a visceral organ standpoint when they're breathing, right? Like supposedly is the reason why Houdini died is that someone punched him in the stomach when he was breathing, because he used to have that thing where he could take anybody's punch in the stomach. Right. And then someone supposedly punched him in the stomach when he wasn't ready, and then he went into the box, chained himself up, and then he lost the ability to manage his breathing and then drowned.
Yeah, a lot of these martial arts timing, you want to attack your opponent when they're breathing in. That's when they're most vulnerable. Then they can't move. You never want to show your opponent that you're breathing in, because at that point they will attack you. Then you won't be able to move. When you're breathing out, that's when you're supposedly protected, and you can react to their technique.
And that's the reason why modern Aikido, you don't spend a whole lot of time kokyuing.
Sorry. People that like breathe out when they do, that just kills me, man. Because like kokyu means breath, but kokyu in Japanese could also mean timing or getting the knack of something.
The synchronization.
So technically, when they breathe out, you have to breathe out. When they breathe in, you're supposed to breathe in and match their breathing somehow.
Well, but that's the mixture of two different arts. If you look at karate and they do their breathing, they spend a lot of time breathing out and breathing in.
Yes.
To harden their body.
Yes.
But also if you look at like Wim Hof breathing methods, they talk about this idea of how bringing CO2 and oxygen into your body can help heal you. And like you do all this like free running in the cold with no clothes on, just a pair of shorts. But they've managed their breathing, and the CO2 in the breath or something like that helps them last longer. It helps their muscles not become so fatigued. So trying to understand how to breathe, and then Aikido technique, we don't say, here's where you breathe out, here's where you breathe in. Because in Aikido, it's not necessarily, I don't know if this is true, you might know, that we don't necessarily say, here you breathe in and here you breathe out. You're supposed to maintain your natural breathing throughout the whole movement.
I mean, I suspect that back in the old days, when Aikido was just for martial arts experts, that they didn't teach that stuff because the expert swordsman or jiu-jitsu guy, they already knew about the breathing part. So they just skipped over that part and went into like the more higher concepts of the Aikido technique. So that's my theory of why they don't say breathe in, breathe out, because all that stuff is like, the breathing stuff is like, martial arts 101 type thing.
You mean because a lot of trained martial artists came to Aikido?
Yes, that they did not have to
relearn it.
They didn't have to go, okay, this is how you stand, this is how you hold the sword. They just assumed that you knew these things.
Yeah.
And they moved on to how to elevate your skill.
And that same skills even in like tea ceremony and dance. You have to breathe in a certain way in order to do a successful, smooth tea ceremony or dance or ikebana or something like that.
Yeah, like I guess in a way, like what I heard was every traditional art was based on some samurai martial arts technique. So even when you're doing tea ceremony, you're still training your body to achieve this state.
This state of calm, appropriate movement.
Despite anything unplanned that might happen.
Or fear.
Or
Nerves.
or worry, nerves. You know, I'm not doing this good enough. I suck at this. You just do it. And the purity of this action shows up and is beautiful. No matter, it's completely non-judgmental, but the action is so pure that it becomes correct.
You talked earlier, Sensei, about not talking in class. And one of the things I've been thinking while we're having this conversation is that if someone who's never done Aikido comes and visits an Aikido class, if it's going well, it's very quiet.
Right.
And does that each individual's quietude create the overall environment that helps people like empty their mind and get into the motion?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the calligraphy above the tokonoma, it's a shusei. You know, practice silence or silence in practice, right? Because what benefit does Tenkan have in the real world? Nothing. Your boss goes, "Where's those TPS reports?" You just Tenkan around him. No, right? No.
Sorry, it's
right?
completely ridiculous.
Your coworker comes in and goes, "Did you eat my Jello out of the refrigerator?" You shomanuchi them in the head, right? Like it doesn't. They don't do anything for you in the real world. But if you have the ability to relax, to calm down, to center your mind in adversity, you could become anything in life, right? And you apply all these Aikido principles to your daily life. Your boss goes, "Man, Ken, you're really great under fire." Well, where do you think I learned that? Aikido. Well, Bill, you're so organized. Well, this person, like those concepts you learned in Aikido. Like you have to carry the tray from A to B in front of all these people, and you don't just drop all the drinks. Where did you learn that? You learn how to calm down and move with mindfulness when the moment counted, right? You could get your work done because you're able to relax your frazzled nerves, calm down, and then get those reports out. Or just you punching the table, getting mad at your boss, thinking I could kick his butt. Like, that's not going to do anything for you.
I know one of my last thoughts about this is that as I'm listening to both of you talk, that the way we learn things in school in the United States or in Europe mostly, I don't know anything about Japan, but is you get a set of tasks, you maybe ask questions about those tasks, you then reevaluate, you ask more questions. And that doesn't work in Aikido, that style of, at least not in daily practice. Well, there might be an opportunity for that.
Because you don't know what the tasks are.
Right.
Right? Like, one of the things I was thinking about this morning when I got up is that in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he talks about that. Yeah. What's the Aikido hierarchy of needs? Well, first you need technique, but then you need mobility, because you don't have mobility, you can't really perform the techniques to their appropriate level. So when you really think about this idea, right, you think you have to find some way to build it, right? So what you're saying is that they're giving a certain level of tasks. Aikido, there's no tasks, right? We don't go A and B and then all the steps of Tenkan are all written out. If you come to class, you will hear all the
cues.
Tenkan, slide in, turn, step back, good posture, so you have But yeah, that's the hard part. Like martial arts is not taught that way. It's taught in the old way. Watch, copy, learn.
Right.
And then the more you do it, in my experience, the more I did a technique the same way over and over and over and over and over again as consistently as I could, for me, I started to see all these things like, oh, that's why we do it like that. Because you notice more things about the movement the more you do it consistently rather than changing it. Like you might think, I don't want to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this way. Then you never get the gist, the meat of what that movement's supposed to mean, actually.
Yeah. You know? But that's, most people can't handle that.
Yeah, that's a very, very boring way to teach. But it, for me, ultimately is the most rewarding way to train.
Well, it's short term versus long term.
Yeah.
You want it now? You want to have fun now? You want to have fun later? No, variety is the spice of life.
Yes.
But that's not how you learn anything in this world.
No.
You learn it by rote, doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And let's say we call it 10,000 reps. Then what happens is your eye develops.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then that's why you could see something different. Oh, I saw that. Or you just something, you go, ooh, I saw that.
And that's the only way to develop your eye is to look at something 10,000 times.
And not check out while you look at it.
And not check out, like actively observing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like traditional martial arts because they don't like the repetition. But that's, in boxing, you punch, 10,000, millions of times, right?
Well, that's how that guy caught the ball. He didn't catch the ball any old way. His hand came out and it caught it at the right spot. It's not like he blocked it and just bounced off his hand. He barehanded caught it. How did he do that? That's repetitive. Right?
Like his movement was perfect.
Right. When the ball hit his hand, it grabbed it in a certain way. All those things were trained movements. Right? He can't just put his hand we could probably do that same thing, but we would just hit it away.
Yeah.
And hope that it just hit our hand.
Yeah.
And then didn't hit us in the face.
Yeah. I would have hard hands. What they call hard hands. Ball just bounces off your hard hands.
No, he caught it barehanded.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's an incredible video.
It didn't bounce out. Right? So, but that's the thing. Through the repetition, his eye is developed, his body's developed, his hand is developed to catch, and then when the moment he needed it the most, he just turns around and grabs it out of the sky.
Then he grabbed it out of the sky in a relaxed manner.
Right, yeah.
He was not tense at all.
No, he didn't have to jump. He didn't freak out.
Yeah.
He just caught it, shook his hand, guys, interview.
Yeah. He caught it without a worry.
Yeah. And that's like, I think you told me this story about your friend who did kendo, where he was in a bar, and then two guys tried to hit him with a bottle, and then he caught the bottle.
Yeah, his hands just came up.
Yeah. So see, he couldn't do that if he wasn't trained. For one, he might just freak out and get hit with one of them, but his friend caught both the bottles before it hit his head.
It's very cool. My experience, I don't have the experience that both of you have, much more senior than me, but I know when I talk to people and they ask me, oh, what do you do in life? Like someone new, and you're like, oh, I do Aikido, and they're like, oh, that's the art of peace, or Aikido is the philosophical martial art. No, it happens all the time. And what I think is if you're attracted to Aikido because you think it's the art of peace or it's moving meditation, coming in and immediately wanting to experience the art of peace is impossible.
Yeah. I was talking with Mike this morning. He had a great analogy that I'll share with you. He said karate is a striking art, offensive art. It's just on or off. Aikido is a volume where you can up the amplitude or turn down the amplitude. You want to turn it down on someone? You can turn it down. You want to turn it up and make it super violent? You can turn it up. And I thought that's a great analogy. And that's this idea that you trying to understand how your mind works.
Right.
When you get scared, the first thing you do is you just punch it out of the sky, right? You're trying to relax that tendency and iron it out so that you don't have to you get scared, you just punch that person in the face, right? You're a trained martial artist. You shouldn't have to react like that.
Then going with your
volume,
with your rheostat analogy, Like a lot of times for me, the hardest part was throwing somebody down slowly but without using power and making the technique still effective. Taking my time and catching their timing without like rushing and like freaking out. Because it's easy to go full hog and just smash somebody.
Yeah, it takes no training.
It takes no training, to throw someone hard. It takes training to throw someone down softly but effectively, breaking their unbalancing them, breaking their center, overextending their energy, whatever. That takes skill when you're calm and doing it very softly.
And you can only do that when you're calm and relaxed.
That's true.
Yourself.
So as we finish up here, we answer the question, is Aikido meditation? Not really. You can get the same benefits of meditation. And, moving meditation, I don't know if that's the correct way. It's an easy out when you're explaining Aikido, but it's much more definitive or
it's more nuanced than that.
Than that, because in moving meditation, you're just being mindful of every step. In Aikido, you're not only being mindful of every step, you're watching your breathing, you're watching this person who's attacking you, right? And so you get the same benefits if you can lower your mind into that state. So I guess it is meditative.
It's almost like you're eliminating all the static in your brain so you can see everything very, very clearly.
That's the perfect analogy.
I think it's a great place for us to conclude.
Okay, well, this is the last podcast of 2024. Season 5 starts in a couple of weeks. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like or subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.